Good morning, friends. This is Miss Joy here, Teacher K. I just wanted to touch base and talk to you today about learning styles. This is specific to parents. I think it would be really good for you to take the time to learn about your child's individual learning style. Why is it important? Because each person has their own specific way of learning. You might have a specific way of teaching. Maybe you just like to talk. Maybe you just like to write things down and everyone can look at it on the board. But the most efficient way for you to teach is to find out each individual learning style and say, okay, this one really likes this one seems to do well with this. And so you teach in that way, and then your time is very effectual. You can get the exact same thing done in half an hour versus could take 3 hours to just get one concept down. Better to make your time more efficient. So let's talk about the different learning styles. I have my friend the sloth here today. He's just here so that I can have an activity for my hands so my hands don't go crazy. Also, he is going to be a participant in the physical kinesthetic learner portion. So the first learning style I want to talk about is verbal. Verbal is linguistic and prefers using words like speech or writing. Those kids are very talkative kids. They easily express themselves through words, and they have a high vocabulary, and they enjoy reading about vocabulary. So for those kids, you want to do activities that have to do about speaking out loud, giving them an opportunity to speak. It could be just in the classroom, or you guys can do like a presentation where they express themselves with words in front of the family. You know, maybe like, okay, today you're going to talk about volcanoes. Learn as much as you can and tell us everything you know about volcanoes, something like that. It's actually a really good way for someone to retain the information, to move it from short-term memory into long-term memory, is to speak in front of people. So that would be a good option. You can debate. That might be fun. You might think your third grader isn't ready, but they could do it. If you say, here's your pros and I'm going to give you my cons, and we're going to fight it out with our words. Some kids thrive in that environment, and guess what? It's going to be very meaningful, very impactful. Even if other kids are listening in while the two of you debate, if they happen to be what they call an auditory learner, where they learn through listening, hey, it's 2-for-1 deal. 2-for-1 special. The other really good tip for a verbal or linguistic learner is to journal. Have them journal every day. That's a really good practice for any child, anytime. So if you're working with anyone second or third grade and up, if you just give them a little peachy folder, a little journal, and they sit down and they just write for maybe 10 minutes, 5 minutes even, in the beginning of the day, it helps get their extra words out. This is good for a child who talks a lot. Obviously, that would have been very good for me, because I love to talk too. All right, so the first one we talked about is verbal. The second one that I want to cover is visual. A visual learner, we've heard this many times, they learn by observing. So usually this is a really good thing for you to figure out, because sometimes you may need to do the activity with them or in front of them so that they can see how you accomplish that goal. For instance, in math, if you are sitting and you say, all you have to do is carry the one. Well, they need to see you carry the one. So you do a few of the problems first, and then they get to watch you. These kids usually really enjoy pictures. So hello, Google Images, we need pictures, diagrams. Good time to use a Venn diagram. Do you remember the Venn? Look up Venn diagram. And they really like whiteboards. They learn the best if it's written down on a whiteboard. So that's actually a really good tip for any family, anytime, anywhere. Get a whiteboard. You can write the schedule on there. You can get a calendar on there. I have mine right here. I put everything that we plan to do that day. I write down the weather so that they know, okay, it's going to be sunny, so I want shorts on you, that kind of stuff. Okay, so that's for visual. They also like to draw, so they learn by drawing. The activity of writing and looking at something is kinesthetic, but if you're looking at it, you looked at what you just drawed, not good grammar, but you just looked at it, that's also a way for you to learn in that discipline. So we've got verbal, visual, next is auditory. This is a way that people learn too, just by listening. It's a very small percentage. I think it's 20 to 30% of kids, if I remember my numbers right. And so these ones end up really enjoying things that are put to song and music. They end up usually become musicians or singers themselves because they really respond to it. I've got two, a niece and a nephew, who respond very well to music. So every day when they're over, I start the day with some music. I sing to them when I want them to remember something. I want you to go upstairs and put on your pajamas. Then they remember it better. Whatever, I'll do whatever it takes to get the kids to remember. So if I have to sing and sound funny, I will do that. And remember, I once did a video talking about a very successful social studies 7th grade teacher who used to set his curriculum to Beyonce songs. I'm not even joking you. And it was so successful. He would be able to quote a Beyonce song, and then they would all remember what event in history that is relating to. Use what works. In fact, there's a whole curriculum, a Christian curriculum for homeschoolers called Classical Conversations, where they have all these DVD or CDs where they set all the music to song, and they're actually really quite effectual. Age of Ancient Empires. You remember it. You can't forget it, actually. And so the best thing to reach those kids is to add music when possible and do verbal presentations. So you speak and they speak also. The act of hearing and the act of speaking, they can be interconnected. All right, and the last one I wanted to talk about, so we talked about verbal, eyes, ears, and now we're going to talk about our hands. Physical, kinesthetic, like I have this guy right here. So in a classroom, a handful of these kids are ADHD or ADD, and that's okay. You can reach those ones as well with physical touch. They have to learn by touching it. So it's a physical activity. Usually sports are really good for them. And my big tip is acting it out. So like say we read a chapter of a book. It was hard for them to hear it. Every time that a person is speaking, I'll do it in an accent and I'll act it out. But Tom Sawyer said, where I'll put on a hat and be like, yo, yo, yo. Whatever you can do to help them see it, visualize it, and then they get to touch it. Another really good hands-on activity for a kinesthetic learner when we were talking about globes is you take an orange and you draw the globe on the orange, and then you unroll the orange, making careful consideration not to take out a country, right, or a continent. Then you take that orange and you try to lay it flat, and that helps them conceptualize that it's really difficult to make a sphere turn into a map, and that's why everything is disproportionate in our maps and how they're not like congruent. That's a really good way of illustrating, demonstrating an abstract concept. So hands-on is a must. Other things that I like to do, and most kids are hands-on kinesthetic learners, at least by a percentage. So Play-Doh. For instance, we learned about human anatomy, and I made them take Play-Doh and create intestines, create the lungs, create the digestive system so that they can see it, look at it, and play with it, and it's a fun activity, and it kills a good half hour. Blocks, if they build something from scratch, these are really good. So I'd be like, okay, we learned about the kinesthetic system, and then here's a block, and now you tell me what the Statue of Liberty looks like. And then if you do counting, I would grab physical beads for counting. That's really helpful. All right, guys, go ahead and look for some ways to learn more about your child's individual learning style and try to meet a broad spectrum of stuff. Have a great day.